So when you learn this, the full process includes 7 steps. So if you could do a blue card that says compression planning 7-step process. Okay, so now I need one that says explore on blue. One that says focus / concept. One that says action plan. One that says communication plan. And one that says debrief. So if you do the full-blown entire process, this is what you go through. And when I learned it in 1986, learned all of this, but it hadn't been tightened up. And what they've done over the years is really put a whole process together that really is effective going from idea to action. So what happens is the design is where you sit down with your customer and you design and lay it out. So what I'm working from today is I just did a little design for myself. I do them just on a sheet of paper. You can do them on a PowerPoint and set them up that way, whatever works for you. Second part of the process, once you do this, now this design typically includes the background. So we may put up maps and pictures and things on boards, so everybody in the room has a feel for what the project and the task is, etc. And we'll talk about what the purpose and non-purpose, all that's part of the design. So then we want to explore. That's the explosion of ideas. If I can have a marker. So what we want to have happen here is an explosion of ideas to occur. Now actually they've even taken this to the point where it's all color coded and it starts moving into green or something like that to help separate that. Once you do the explore though, say we had 90 ideas generated in 30 minutes. We had 20 people, we generated 90 ideas. Well, we can't do 90 ideas. We've got to get prioritized. We've got to get narrowed down to the best ideas. So we want to focus and start merging things that are, we may have 90 ideas, and if we start merging the ones that are all alike, we now have about 30 ideas. And we've got a bunch of cards grouped together. And then we start going from there and moving into concepting. So what we do is we start narrowing all the explosion of ideas that we got in Explore. Once we do that, we develop actions. We get down to the critical few, and then we start developing action plans. And actually, when you get into this whole process, it's really tight. You actually get a list of things tied back to your purposes that then the numbers correspond actually to your action steps. It really tightens things up. It's amazing, though, in 4 hours, what you can get done. This was our topic card. Should put that up there. And once we have our action plans, we need to communicate the information so people know what their tasks are, who's been assigned, what their due dates are, what the metrics are. And what I say about strategic plans and what I do, I talk about, hey, you know, we tend to under-communicate to our key stakeholders, both internally and externally. I view strategic plans as investment opportunities, and the stakeholders are the investors, and we want to marry them up. So you do grants, or if you had a development officer, you probably have a foundation, they get that kind of talk. But we don't think that way about strategic plans or marketing plans. Well, if you want buy-in and that to happen, we have to tell more people, not less. What do we do in many organizations? The upper level hear about it, nobody else does. So how are those people in the trenches who actually provide the teller at the front line that do the work in the trenches, how are they connected to purpose? Do they even know what the purpose is at the bank? And you hope they do, or at the college, or in the engineering school. So that's how powerful a communication plan can be. And then the last thing that we do, and if you'll put on a yellow card what worked well, and if you'll put on a yellow card opportunities for improvement, and so it's WWW and OFIs. That's just a process. And again, I learned this before I ever knew anything about quality improvement. This came out of compression planning. And then I started seeing it in the world of Lean and Six Sigma now. But when you get done, and I do this with the people who are the participants, not the owner. And we talk about what worked well and what would be opportunities of improvement the next time we do this. And we find little gems that will help us as we move forward. So I'm going to show you videos. And we started a little late. Hopefully we can get through these. If you can bring up number 1, Angie. This is Pat McNellis. It's either Jerry or Pat on these, and this is about a car wash.
We have a topic we're going to be working on that's revitalizing a drive-through car wash. I'm going to be your facilitator, just your guide through it. I'm not going to be so much participating, but making sure that you all can participate. And we're going to capture all of the ideas, and we're going to use these storyboards as our visual medium to just capture everything. Let me hit our design, revitalizing a drive-through car wash. Why are we doing this? The overall purpose of this project is to generate $800,000 in sales per year. And it's also to create a reproducible model for other dead car washes. And dead car washes could be in quotes. They're ones that just aren't really producing. They're the same as every other wash out there. The reason that you all are sitting around this table right now, the purpose of this session is to generate 8 ideas which will be the cornerstones for this revitalization. The non-purpose at this point in time is to worry about costs. Now here's some background I think that's helpful to know while we go out and look at these cornerstones. The wash is located on a busy street. There's a professional office park located down the way from our wash. It's about a mile away. There are 2 restaurants that are within walking distance. Business has been dead for the last 18 months.
Okay, so he's starting the process, and what he did is he basically, he's got his background up there under design. He's got his overall purpose all laid out on a series of cards. He did that with his customer, his client. He's going to talk about the overall purpose of this session. He's going to have described, and that may come up in the next one, the non-purpose. And he had all those pictures and diagrams and background information about where it's located, what kind of neighborhood it's in, all that kind of stuff. You can't do what I just did with flip charts. And I'll tell you, try it with Post-it notes and start pulling them off and moving them. They'll start rolling up and falling to the ground. So I've seen a lot of people use Post-it notes and stuff, and you can do that, but I have continued to find this to be more effective. So next video.
We have 3 questions we're going to be looking at. Ways to do the wash so everyone will want their car done that way. Special services we can offer to create lifelong customers, and ways to promote so people will drive 100 miles for a wash.
So those are provocative headers. Who's going to drive 100 miles? Nobody. But if you can get them to drive 100 miles, you ought to be able to get them to drive 5 blocks. When I learned to do this, a guy needed to sell his house. So we did a whole compression plan, because you pick projects in training. So if you come to this, they'll want you to come with a project, either a work project, or maybe one of you are getting married, or we're going on vacation. You can do all of that. So we helped a guy sell his house, and so one of the things they talk about is by analogy, or neoteny, which is looking through the eyes of a child. How would they look at it? You know, if I'm 6'8", if I were like 3'5", what would my world look like? Well, look through a kid's eyes. Well, we said, well, how would we sell a boat? And we thought all these ways we'd sell a boat, and we said, well, hey, we should apply that to a house. And that's by analogy. And so there's provocative headers, 100 miles. That's what he's doing. Go ahead, Angie.
Knowing that people are not going to drive 100 miles for a wash, but if we can think in that kind of radius, we could probably pull them in easier from 5 miles. While everybody's generating ideas, I'm just going to ask that you suspend judgment. Now is not the time to determine if it's good, bad, doable, not doable. We're just going to get it up. What may seem to be an off-the-wall dumb idea may spark something that is really doable. So I'm going to ask that you listen to each other. No speeches. Sometimes speeches tend to be, this is what I think we should do, and these are all the reasons why. Share with us the what you think we should do. We don't really care about the why right now. Just give us enough 30, 40 seconds.
So I didn't list that as a rule, and I always use that, no speeches. And then the little green card that goes with it is 15 seconds. How many meetings have you been in where a person throws out an idea and then spends the next 10 minutes telling you why it's a good idea? We don't care about why, just get the idea out. So we'll let you have 15 seconds to explain it, because sometimes you may throw out something and nobody knows what the heck you're talking about, so you get 15 seconds. It forces you to be very concise. Speeches kill brainstorming.
And we're going to really spin, churn thoughts to rich ideas. It's going to be a little bit slower pace than maybe a typical brainstorming session that you've been a part of.
So he's moving from here to the explorer, and what he's saying about spin and churn is once we get all those good ideas and we start moving them together and then we want to concept them, we want to spin and churn the idea. Let's make it a richer, more robust idea. You all are from different industries or different disciplines, and I suspect you have not seen too much churning and spinning of ideas in meetings. And if you have, you probably would say, yeah, that really helped. That was rewarding. But I don't see that done in a very organized fashion very often. It may be spun and churned based on the power of whoever's in the meeting or how dominant they are. And as I said, this is not only a process that helps you do this, it has some rules of engagement.
I want everybody to just picture a dirty car. What are some ways to do the wash so everyone will want their car done that way? Here's what I want to do.
It's a great idea.
We got a lot of ideas coming. I'm going to put you into groups of 2.
Okay.
You want to come back with 6 cards. And you're going to have 7 minutes to do it.
Now, there's a lot of formations. I like a horseshoe shape, but if you have a small group of 5, they actually make a small horseshoe. And what you're seeing here, he's got more than that. But you will start assigning roles. And so where I've had all of you printing, and I like to do that because it gets the people who don't talk printing and then they get talking. But I'll tell you, the bigger the group, it's harder. So what he'll do is he'll say, I want you 2 to be the printers. So for the next 15 minutes, you're printing. And then he'll rotate that and say, then now you 2 will be printing. So I could just say, I want the 2 of you to be my printers. And then one of the ground rules is you have to actively listen, because you're going to have to write it. And one of the other ground rules is if it's your idea, you don't have to write it. So people have to jump in and say, I've got it, I've got it. Really get some active listening going on. He also might have this guy jump up and be a pinner. So that person's going to come up, and while I'm busy facilitating, because what I'm doing now is I'm turning around talking to the board sometimes, I can continue to facilitate, and you're up here, and you're collecting the cards, and you're putting them where they go. Once you get a group through this a few times, it's not rocket science. It's very powerful. It's robust in its simplicity. People get it very quickly about how to do this. I will tell you, when you haven't done this, people say, you make it look easy, because I'm thinking about how I want to organize and putting things in certain places, and when you haven't done this, and if I ask you to do that, it'd be like the old Lily Tomlin thing with the operator thing. Once you get using it, though, it gets smoother. So he'd have pinners and printers, and that helps the facilitator. Go ahead.
Mark it, set, go.
Oh, can you go back a little bit, Angie? So right here at the end, I want to show you how tight this gets. See these numbers right here? those come from the purposes, because when I work with the purposes, they're not, we really spend time working on those purposes. And so now we literally brainstorm against each purpose. So if I have 4 purposes of the session, I may have 4 headers that go with that to get ideas around that purpose. And so then that's purpose number 5. And these are the remaining good ideas from number 5 that will get turned into action steps. So it really, every step of the 7 steps, and you saw 6 here, it's because focus and concept are 2 together. It's very tight. And then the other thing that you'll find is these cards are put together very tightly against each other, because you can take masking tape and you can run it right down the board, take the pins out, fold the cards up like an accordion and put them in an envelope marked headers. And you can take them back and type them. There's all sorts of tricks like that. You'll learn that when you go through this. Go ahead.
We now need to go back and look at the purpose of this session was to generate 8 ideas, which will be the cornerstones for the revitalization. We have between 60 and 70 ideas up here. It's just too much. We don't have the resources to do that or the time. We need to narrow it down to a manageable few, and we specifically stated 8. We need to challenge the ideas and not the people or the groups that came up with them. So you need to challenge them for, are they going to have an impact on sales, and are they going to be reproducible? Focus in on the unique factors, what's going to set us apart as a car wash. And there may be an opportunity to merge some ideas together. If we could do one without doing the other, we'll keep them separate. But if 1 + 1 equals a big one, we'll merge them. I'm going to have you come up. We have 3 categories. 1 dot per card per person. We are going to look for the cards that get the collective dots. So don't take all 8 of your dots and put them on one idea.
So they're dotting what they, by the rules. Okay, so stop there. So what they're doing is critical thinking. So we've done the creative, getting them out on the board. Now, after we've done the grouping, we now are left with the best of those, well, we have those ideas. Now we want to know what floats to the top. Now, 2 things about this. They get voted. I was telling Sonny, as you do this yourself, you'll come up with your own ways of doing it that you didn't learn. I have all sorts of little things I do. And when we type these up in Excel spreadsheets, we rank order them, because they don't come up in rank order when you do that. And then we put in parentheses the numbers, and then we draw our own cutoffs. So one might have 10 dots, 8 dots, 7, and 2. So we'll take those top 3, and then that's the ideas we're working with. So you have dots in your pack, and I would say, okay, you each get 3 votes. You got to use them on different cards, and you put them on the card, and these don't want to cooperate with me. And so you start seeing what bubbles to the top. I dare say you've been in meetings where you've debated something for 30 minutes, then voted it, some numerical thing, and the damn thing didn't even get a vote. That you spent 30 minutes debating. It was a waste of your time. So this allows you to kind of see what surfaces, but the beauty of this is when it gets typed up, they get you get everything. Even the ones that didn't get votes or got low votes, because you know what? Later on, one of those things may spark another idea, or they may go with another one, so you don't lose anything. So again, it's that transparency and engagement. And this last one, number 5. So, and Angie, just stop right there a second. So they did the explore, they did the focus, and then they voted. Now we're moving to the action plan, and that's where you are right now. Stop it. They do this a little differently now when I learned it, and I have used this for 28 years. I do communication plans different than any of my colleagues in marketing. I use a card that says the general what, the specific what. I also have who's going to do it, what's the time, what's the sequence, the date and the time, and then I also have a last one I put on called landmines and barriers. How's this going to blow up in our face? We think it's a great idea. The union doesn't think it's such a good idea. Okay, so that kind of thing. So if we know about it, at least 50% of it we can deal with. 50% we can at least warn our leaders in that this may be something you're going to have to deal with. But even on these specific messages, you identify your stakeholder groups, so you number them. So now I've got 5 stakeholder groups. And then what you do, you have the stakeholder groups, you number your messages 1 through 14 or 1 through whatever it is, and you say this group gets message 2, 5, 8, 9. This group gets 1, 3, 4, and 5. So again, I'm trying to impress you upon this is not chaos. This is very tight, but it's also very liberating, very creative, and very fast. Okay? Well, go ahead. I really appreciate it because I came at some distance, and I did want to make sure if I came and told you about it that I did a good enough job that you might walk out the door and feel like you have a better feel for it. So I really appreciate that, and I know Sonny does too, that you came tonight, and hopefully you'll tell others, and hopefully you'll sign up and get trained. I say that because I'm somebody who's used it for 28 years and really find it to be a wonderful tool for me and my work, and I think you would too.